Hello, good morning. Welcome to day 2 of our remote learning. I hope everyone is doing well. And more importantly, I hope everyone is feeling well. I hope you're getting a chance to go outside a little bit, get some fresh air. I know it's been beautiful the last 2 days, at least here in Charlotte it is. I'm hoping it's nice in Rock Hill too. So we left off where Gilly could not find any money at Mr. Randolph's house. And she wrote her mother, Courtney, and she said that the ticket was $136 one way. And she said, I'll get a job, I'll pay you back. And she ran to the corner and she mailed her letter. So we are now on the chapter called One Way Ticket. Not everything in the letter to Courtney had been absolutely true, but surely the part about Trotter being a religious fanatic was. She read the Bible and prayed every day, always joining Mr. Randolph's grace over food. Besides, anybody who started for church at 9 in the morning on Sunday and didn't get home until after 12:30 had to be peculiar. Sunday mornings were torture to Gilly. It was a strange little white frame building stuck up on a hill behind the police station, built when the city was a country town instead of part of the metropolitan Washington sprawl. The church didn't fit in the modern world anymore than the people who went there did. The children's Sunday school class, in which both Gilly and W.E. were lumped in with 5 to 6 other 12-year-olds in the church, was presided over by an ancient Miss Minnie Applegate, who reminded her 7 charges every Sunday that she had been saved by Billy Sunday. Who in the hell was Billy Sunday? He sounded like a character from the comics. Billy Sunday, meet Brenda Starr. Also, Miss Applegate neglected to say what Billy Sunday saved her from: a burning building, the path of a speeding locomotive, or indeed, having been so luckily preserved, what good had her picking accomplished for either herself or the world? Old Applegate would do things like lecture them on the 10 Commandments and then refuse to explain what adultery was. But Miss Applegate, an 8-year-old, has sensibly asked, if we don't know what adultery is, how can we know if we're doing it or not? Gilly, of course, knew all about adultery. In whispered conversations between Sunday school and church, she offered for sale not only the definition of the word, but some juicy neighborhood examples, which had lately come into her attention, thanks to Agnes Stokes. In this way, she gained 78 cents in coins previously designated for the church collection plate. The preacher was as young as the Sunday school teacher was old. He, too, was high on getting saved and other matters of eternal preservation. But his grammar was worse than Trotter. And to Gilly's disgust, he'd stumble over words of more than one syllable whenever he read the Bible. Nobody but a religious fanatic would put up with such gross ignorance for over an hour every week of their lives. Nobody but religious fanatics and the innocent victims they forced to go to church. Unlike some of the women, Trotter didn't carry on over the preacher at the church door, which made Gilly bold enough to ask her once, how can you even stand him? It was the wrong question. Trotter sucked in her breath and looked down at her like Moses. Who am I? She thundered. To pass judgment on the Lord's anointed. Would anybody but a fanatic say a thing like that? Mr. Randolph went to the Black Baptist Church. The same taxi that took Trotter and the children to the White Baptist Church dropped him off on the way and picked him up on the way home. Gilly noted that the Black Baptists dressed fancier and smiled more than the Whites. But their services lasted even longer, and often W.E. would have to run in and get the old man out of his service while the taxi meter impatiently ticked away. It was usually past 2 by the time they got out of their Sunday clothes, cooked dinner, and finally sat down to their long, lazy meal. The Sunday after the dusting, Mr. Randolph surprised everyone by refusing seconds. Oh, you must know, Miss Trotter, how it pains me to say no to this exquisite chicken, but my son is coming over around 3. At the word son, something clanked inside of Gilly's chest. Suppose the son noticed that something was funny inside Mr. Randolph's living room. The chair on the opposite side, the books rearranged. Suppose he knew where the money should have been. Oh, you got time for a piece of pie now, don't you, Mr. Randolph? It's cherry today. Cherry, my, my. Mr. Randolph held his bony thumb and index finger an inch apart. About so much, all right? I'm helpless for your cherry pies, Miss Trotter. Totally helpless. He was chewing the pie blissfully when suddenly he stopped. Oh my, have I got any spots on my clothes? My son gets so upset. Trotter put her fork down and studied him. You look good, Mr. Randolph, only just a little something on your tie. Oh, mercy, mercy. The boy is always looking for some excuse to say I can't take care of myself so he can drag me over to his big house in Virginia. He dipped his napkin into his water glass and tried to dab his tie, completely missing the offending spots. Oh, shoot, Mr. Randolph, let me get you one of Melvin's old ties to wear. I don't know why I still got so much of his stuff around anyhow. She sniffed as if to clear a memory of the late Mr. Trotter. Gilly, run up to my room and look in the back of the closet, will you? There's a dozen more on the coat hanger. Before Gilly got out the door, she added, just pick a nice one, you hear? Not one of the real loud ones. She turned, half apologetically, to Mr. Randolph. Sometimes, in those last years, if Melvin was feeling low, he'd go out and buy some wild tie and wear it every day for a week. She shook her head. I guess I should praise the Lord. It wasn't some wild woman he was hanging around his neck. Mr. Randolph giggled. Why don't you bring me a wild one, Miss Gilly? I need to wake up that 50-year-old senior citizen I've got for a son. Trotter threw back her massive head and belly laughed. You're some kind of man, Mr. Randolph. Well, you're some kind of lady. So what do you think Mr. Randolph and Miss Trotter are doing right now? You can go ahead and put it in the comments. I think they're flirting. That's what I think. Gilly fled up the stairs. The scenes between Trotter and Mr. Randolph made her insides curl. It was weird to see old people carry on, old people who weren't even the same color. But it was not that silly flirtation that was bothering her. It was a vision of Mr. Randolph's prissy 50-year-old son poking around his father's living room. So when she saw Trotter's purse with its no good fastener lying wide open on the bed, inviting her, practically demanding her to look in, she did. Good God, Trotter must have cashed her check from the county welfare. Gilly did a quick count, at least 100. Another 100 would get her all the way to California, all the way to Courtney Rutherford Hopkins, all the way home. She stuffed the money in her pocket, went to the closet, and found the hanger full of Melvin's madness. She chose the gaudiest one, 4-inch high ballet dancers in purple tutus, their pink leggings pirouetting on a greenish flowering hand. She tiptoed to her own room, slipped the fat wad of bills in her drawer under the t-shirts, and tiptoed back to Trotter's door. Once there, she slammed her feet down and noisily descended down the stairs. Oh, my sweet baby, what have you done? Gilly's blood went cold. How could Trotter know? That tie, that's the worst crime Melvin ever committed, rest his precious soul. Oh, good, good. Mr. Randolph was standing up, rubbing his wrinkling hands together in excitement. Tell me about it. You better not take this one, Mr. Randolph. It's got all these fat women jumping around on it. Really? The little brown face beamed. Well, I guess it's okay. They're wearing tutus. Tutus, prompted Gilly, gratefully recovering from her earlier shock. What? Asked Trotter. Tutus. They're wearing tutus. Trotter roared. Ain't that perfect? Tutus. Tutus. And they're just basically making fun of the word right now. Mr. Randolph was already taking off his spotted black tie to make room for Melvin's dancing lady tie. You sure know, Mr. Randolph, I don't want your son thinking I'm some kind of wicked influence on his good Baptist father. Gilly began to wonder if poor Mr. Randolph was going to choke on his own giggles. He doesn't ever need to know where the tie came from. I give you my solemn word. This from a man hysterical with laughter. Jeez. Trotter knotted the tie for him with the kind of assured expertise born of knotting one man's tie for more than a quarter of a century. She stepped back to appraise the effect. Well, what do you think, Gilly, honey? That do something for Mr. Randolph? It's okay. Okay, we got to do better than that. How about you, W.E., honey? How do you like Mr. Randolph's new tie? It's beautiful, the boy whispered. See? Well, Trotter was immediately sober. William Ernest approves. Good, good, said Mr. Randolph, his dignity also once intact. Would you walk with me back to my house then, son? The boy slid out of his chair and took the old man's hand. See you tomorrow, you hear? Trotter said. Thank you. Yes, thank you. And you too, Miss Gilly. See you tomorrow. Yeah, okay, said Gilly, though by this time tomorrow, she figured to be in Missouri at the very least. She dried the dishes as Trotter washed them and put them to drain. Her mind about the Greyhound bus skimming across something that looked like a three-dimensional version of a map in her geography book. Trotter beside her was chuckling again over Mr. Randolph's sporting Melvin's old tie. His son, the big lawyer over in Virginia, I'd give a pretty penny to see his face when he gets a load of that tie. Mercy on us, would I ever? After they finished cleaning up in the kitchen, Trotter went into the living room and stretched out on the couch. Her one trip upstairs on Sundays was to change out of her good dress, so she'd be on the couch the rest of the day, napping or reading the Sunday paper. W.E., back from next door, turned on the TV and laid down on the rug to watch an old movie. Now was the time. Gilly started for the stairs. You want to join us, honey? There's a football game on Channel 9. Less W.E. cares about this movie. W.E. got up, obediently ready to switch channels. No, Gilly said, not right now. I've got things to do. Well, okay, honey. If she was going to go, she would leave by now. By tonight, Trotter would go upstairs, find the money gone, and nothing was sure about what might happen with Mr. Randolph's lawyer's son next door. She packed quickly, although her hands shook. The first thing was to gather all the money together and put it in her pocket. It made a lump as big as an orange. Too bad she'd throw away that silly shoulder bag Miss Nevins had bought her last Christmas. Her jacket. First thing next week, we're going to have to buy you a good warm coat, Trotter had said. She'd been waiting for the support check. Her jacket was hanging by the front door, downstairs, past the open living room door. Trotter was probably asleep, and if Gilly was very quiet, perhaps W.E. wouldn't hear her. She crept down, keeping her suitcase under her right arm to conceal it as best as she could with her body. Crossing the short, bright strip before the door, she glanced in. Neither head turned. She was safely to the front door. She took her jacket off the hook, poked it above the suitcase so that she had a free hand for the doorknob. Where are you going? She jumped around at W.E.'s whisper. In the dark hallway, his glasses flashed. Just out, she whispered back. Oh, good. Make him shut up. He did shut up, and he stood silently looking at her, then at the suitcase, and then at her. Don't go. His little face squeezed up at her like his tiny voice. I got to, she said through her teeth, opening the door. Pulling it shut behind her, shifting the suitcase and jacket to either hand, and running down the hill, the pulse in her forehead pounding as hard as her sneakered feet pounded on the sidewalk. So she left. She left Trotter's house. We are going to stop there. I will pick this up with you on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning. I see some of your comments. I like seeing that you guys are saying this is a good book. I do want to remind you that when I'm reading, it's just like being on the carpet, right? So when I'm reading, you are listening, okay? If you have a question, then that's something you can definitely put in the comments. But as I'm reading, remember, this is not social hour time to just message our friends. So just make sure that you are asking a question or you're commenting, just as you would if I was reading, like you'd be raising your hand, okay? So just make sure that you are doing that correctly. Who wants to see my dogs? Put in the comment if you want to see my dogs. I'm sure some of you do. I will let you see them if you would like. Noda, come here. Come here. Noda, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Right here. Can you say hi? This is Noda. She's my golden. Right here. Nice. Chloe, come here. Come here, Chloe. Chloe, over here. 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 Chloe, right here. The big dog's not listening right now. Chloe, come here. This is my St. Bernard, Chloe. There's my dog. Yay. All right, guys. You have about 45 minutes of work time left. I hope you enjoyed seeing my dogs. Thank you for saying that they're cute and listening to Gilly. Tune in again on Monday at 10 a.m. and we will see if Gilly changes her mind or if she decides to keep going. Bye, guys.